Hello everybody and welcome to the live stream of Whiteboard Wednesdays with Werner. We really want to thank you for tuning in for the live event. If you're watching this afterwards on the video recording, thank you very much. Please leave a like, please share it, and please leave a comment as well. So while we're live, we also have the chat. Please feel free to engage with us. I've got it open right here, so we'll be able to try and answer some of the questions. Now, we welcome back Pierre Leroux. You're the CTO of Reframe, and we had you on the last one as well. So really, thank you so much for joining us again on our live stream.
No, it's good to be back.
Thanks very much. So last time, Pierre, we spoke about the application of artificial intelligence within video analytics, and it was quite fascinating how far this has been developed and researched, and you know, the application of that back into security. And then what we did is you mentioned that there's quite a few use cases that Reframe is working on in terms of, you know, bringing AI to the local market, to the South African market. So we asked the audience, you guys, you know, what would you want to, you know, chat about next? And you know, you picked document digitization. And I thought to myself, well, that's not necessarily the first thing, you know, that I wake up in the morning and go, okay, well, you know, how interesting is document digitization? No, so, but then in prepping for this, you know, doing a bit of research, chatting to you, it's actually, you know, the way of AI application is changing what we're doing in terms of document recognition, document understanding, and bringing intelligence into that whole process, right? So it's absolutely fascinating. Well, I found it fascinating, and hopefully you guys find it fascinating as well. There's a lot of businesses out there that have this challenge of manual documents, or they've got warehouses full of documents, and there's actually a treasure trove of information in there. So, you know, I know that Reframe is working on solving, you know, this problem, bringing it in. So, our topic today and how we're going to go about it is, maybe Pierre, you can, you know, we can just explore, for those who maybe don't know where all this fits in and why this is so revolutionary. Let's just explore the challenges that we traditionally would have with document digitization and recognition. Let's maybe just explore that, you know, and how it was solved, and then kind of, you know, how the application of AI, you know, is changing all of this, and then we're going to wrap up with business value, you know, to our users and to our audience from this. So, you know, every organization has got manual docs, so, you know, why digitize?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. So I think it's a lot of companies that digitize, and some that maybe doesn't, but also where they do digitize, there are already systems in place that would perform OCR and so forth to extract data, and then using that to index and store the data and the documents against that. What we found is it's a very time-consuming task.
Yeah.
It's a very resource-intensive task. So you need
manual resource, compute resource,
manual resource, compute resource, where you've employed some kind of a semi-automated system.
Yeah.
So there's a lack of automated procedures around this, and then after the actual indexing of documentation, sometimes it gets lost if it was incorrectly indexed, and then the accessibility of these documents afterwards is pretty much lost.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, the initial use case was that, you know, we had massive amounts of file cabinets, you know, back in the days, and, you know, organizations wanted to get that data, you know, stored and for safekeeping, and also it's just taking up space. So I guess the initial kind of why do this was to kind of, you know, handle that low level thing. And then the challenges, as you mentioned, with that is, you know, there's just so much that you can't actually do like a second pass. So you kind of get one chance at scanning the document, and then, you know, if it's inaccurate or it doesn't work properly, you know, it's probably just too much to go back and scan it again. So
if you can find it, you know,
exactly, if you can find it, because they probably still keep it, right? So I mean, getting around that solution, I mean, this is obviously a couple of years ago. So technology did advance, and software was brought out to start enhancing that process. So kind of what would you find in the traditional kind of market out there? What's the methods that's used?
Yes. And typically we've developed our solutions and deploying for our clients as well, has been that we need to acquire the document, obviously, in a digitized form.
Yeah.
And in that, it could be a photo being sent, it could be a scanned document, it could be emailed. But from there, you do need to do some kind of pre-processing.
Yeah.
So we do need to apply computer vision algorithms onto the digitized document in order to de-skew it, to denoise it, make it a bit more clearer before we pass to the next step. Then in the next step, we would typically go and do text detection to identify pertinent blocks of text within the document.
Yeah.
And from there we can apply OCR, an OCR process on top of it.
So OCR stands for object character recognition.
Optical character recognition.
Optical character recognition. So, and that's kind of like a static approach, right? So it's basically recognizing, that image.
The words and the characters in that image, and then from there, obviously, the output is English if that's what you've passed for.
Yeah.
And then we needed to do further processing and formatting this output, this metadata, into then an index form that we can then save against a document. And that's
search indexing, and
the approaches are widely used.
Yeah.
Approach.
And I mean, so even though there's a little bit of, I guess, forms of AI in using this, I mean, even our apps now, you got like an app that can scan a document and straighten the picture and straighten the doc and kind of, like you say, take that mark out. That's kind of like table stakes, right? So that's what's widely available, and quite frankly, not even a differentiator anymore. It becomes quite easy. So it is advanced, but that AI is kind of like strung together. There's not, it's not kind of cohesive in a way.
Correct. So it's a lot of different algorithms, models, processes, OCR strung together to achieve a result.
Yes.
So that pipeline itself is very time consuming.
Yes.
Because it takes quite a lot of processing power and time to do, for example, one document, depending on size and the amount of recognition/parsing that you need to do.
And I guess that's the thing, right? I mean, it's easy for end user like you and me, scan our documents and everything. And I'm sure you have done this as well. The audience will probably have scanned their ID document or maybe some kind of documents. Leave us a note if you've done this before in the chat. It would be good to know. But when it comes to scaling, if you've got an entire warehouse of documents that you have to push through, right? I mean, scans per minute, I guess, is what you would be looking for, right? And then obviously if you want to have that workflow as optimized as possible, right? And you're saying that effectively, although this is great for kind of end users like us, applying that into an enterprise or into an industrial scale is difficult.
Yeah, no, for sure. So
those are, what other problems would there be with that approach, I guess, is what we're looking at.
So there's also that means that there's multiple layers strung together, as I mentioned, which means that if we need to fine-tune that pipeline, in other words, incorrectly classified past documents, you have to start tweaking at multiple layers. So the fine-tuning and making the pipeline more accurate becomes also a challenge in itself.
So it's kind of a static approach. It's very difficult to improve on that approach on the fly almost, right? You'll have to go back and kind of retrain every single one of those little MLs. All right, and I mean, obviously, OCR I know is quite compute heavy. There's all of these models that you're putting together. You've got to try and fine tune them. So I guess these problems is what's prohibiting all of this. And then in the end, all that you actually kind of have is just a static document, right? There's no
with some metadata saved.
And some metadata. So you'll probably end up with like some form of PDF, right? With maybe a JSON or XML kind of metadata file that you can index. That's got some of the the mean data around that. So this is where we get to. So how do we then turn this into? How do we apply AI to turn this into something that is of value? How do we extract that value out of these documents? And how do we optimize the process to do this kind of, in a much faster way? So what are you guys doing in terms of bringing AI to document digitization?
Recognition.
Recognition.
Document recognition. And let's add the word understanding.
So now
it's not just about the recognition.
No, because that implies semantics.
It's about the understanding of the document.
Exactly.
Which enters the the new field of, which is quite heavily researched, of what they call visual document understanding.
Visual document understanding, so VDU.
Yeah.
Okay, VDU, interesting.
And the approach uses what they call transformer model
Yeah.
architectures, which gives you the possibility of stringing together encoders, decoders into one model, which means that you've pretty much got one pipeline that can take a document as input,
Instead of those.
and you can ask it multiple tasks, either a classification task, asking a question, or a parsing task.
Okay.
And then the output is your answer or text field or classification in the language that you need
That you would be using.
need that in.
So we're combining image recognition and creating an intelligent view of the language that is used within that document, right? So whether it's an application form or text or large body of text that you're working through, there's effectively that classification and parsing that's happening, and you're bringing that intelligence to that document. So, I mean, this is interesting because now you're bringing, I guess, NLP together with this whole.
It's pretty much if you think about what we talked about last time,
Yeah.
it's a convolutional neural network
Yeah.
combined with a natural language processor.
Nice.
And you're performing the two at the same time through one forward propagation through the network.
Okay.
And that obviously gives us many benefits.
Yes.
It's one model to tweak.
Yeah.
So when things need to be corrected, we
Mhm.
can add that back into the training set, retrain that model. It does give us a capability of what they call visual question answering.
Now this is the fascinating bit, because that really starts bringing value back into this whole process, right? How do we extract something? Now what you're saying is we can tell the model or ask a question to an image.
Correct, yeah. So maybe give me all the pages that's got an account number on it. Or
But how
give me
does
the account number.
Yeah, but how does it know that it's an account number that it's looking for?
And that's where the fine tuning comes in.
Ah,
So we would utilize these transformers, which
Yes.
is built on pre-trained models over millions of data
iterations,
rows.
yeah.
And we would do the fine tuning for this particular use case and start training it for that business's documentation.
So
So that-
localized application,
Correct, yeah.
but you have a base of understanding that's already within the model, and then
So you get this semantics of the language as well,
Wow.
whereby if the document is not that clear, it can actually fill in the missing bits based on the fact that it can string the language together.
now that is something quite interesting. I mean, you can now, if a form is maybe not filled in correctly, or maybe the scan itself is not as clear, right? If you were relying just on, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're just relying on a typical OCR won't recognize that character.
If it's
and
not there, I can't show
you
it.
can't see
No.
it, right? Whereas when you're applying an AI model, if it understands the language, now we're putting NLP into this, it can reconstruct the sentence because it actually understands, let's say, English in this particular case.
The semantics and the context,
context
of what it's
of
in.
that.
Yeah.
Now you see, now that's where we can start actually pulling out
Yeah.
proper value. And this question answering, I mean, there's many workflows that rely on us, if you go to the bank or to a hospital or to, anywhere where you need to fill in a form, how would businesses utilize, that? How do we streamline? I hate filling in forms. I don't like it, So now you walk into tell me about it. When last did you, go for recently went to the hospital and, you get into admissions and then, you fill in all your details there. Then you go see the doc, and the doc then reckons now you need an X-ray. So now you get to the X-ray department, and they need you to fill in a whole bunch of documentation as well. It's a convoluted process, and it takes a lot of time, and those documents get lost, and I don't know. I mean, it's all the stuff that I don't like about manual paperwork. But
No, exactly.
so I mean, that auto question answering, you could have the model basically ask the right questions for those different departments.
Yeah, or you get a set of preset questions that can be asked against these documentation,
Yes.
which essentially then give you the text extraction side of it. But it can sit in multiple documents, and in such it can say give me in all the documents where your name
Yes.
is in.
Yes,
That
yes.
you get the full set of that. So it's a different way of interacting, more on an advanced search
Yes,
capability as well.
And I guess then, in terms of workflow, if we have that predefined set of questions and we can kind of then route documents,
Correct,
to
yeah.
different areas based on the single set of questions, rather than having convoluted rules. If this, then go here, then
Yeah.
else if the, because that's kind of how a workflow is
Yeah.
set up these days, right? So now you have a preset bunch of questions based on the result, the composite result of those questions or the answers. You then can route to the appropriate place and
100%, yeah.
do that.
And as the documentation passes through your business flows, you can end up at the right places.
Yeah. And even exit that and say basically, there's an anomaly detected in this one.
Yeah.
Maybe or you mentioned
So-
in a similar way about the accuracy of.
So if you base it on a confidence threshold,
Yes.
you can say that if the confidence thresholds coming out of, maybe let's say a document classification is low,
Yeah.
we can push it into, let's call it a document quality check
Yes.
workflow location,
Yes.
which will then be a manual location, but somebody can look at it and say, okay, it must be actually this type of document.
Yeah. So exception handling has a human in the loop.
Yeah.
Does the classification.
Forms back into the main flow.
Yeah.
That document is done, dusted, classified, but that also then feeds back into the data set
Yes.
and can then form part of the next training cycle.
Wow.
And that's how you can actually then get the users involved in making document processing more accurate
Yeah.
in your business.
Yeah, and instead of just doing data capturing, which I've done that, it's a mind-numbing work at
Yeah.
some point, right? And prone to errors. I once ordered 500 black dustbins to arrive at Macro instead of just 50. So instead of one truck, there was 10 trucks standing outside of Macro. And I can, my boss wasn't too impressed, and nor were the guys in shipping. But I mean, that's the reality of it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you get back in the day, we got the sales order in, you have to capture this thing, and whereas with this, we would have just sent the 50 that was originally requested, right?
100%.
Man, this has been fascinating. I really, really think that the application is there. This is an OCR-free way of recognizing documents and applying contextual intelligence to that language, right?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's something fascinating. I just want to check if we've got any questions today. We don't have any questions, but really, really good to have you here with us, Pierre, and to discuss this, which, like I thought, this is document scanning. I mean, come on, But it's fascinating where AI is leading us, and it's almost inspiring because from here on in, the application of this into different areas is just,
No, 100%. Into education, potentially.
yeah,
Where kids can ask questions about a certain visual image or document. How many red balls in the image?
yeah,
And do all of that kind of
Yeah.
things with this tech as well.
yeah, because it's basically encoding an image, whether it's got text or then graphics or
And
whatever.
giving it meaning because it's understood.
Yeah, and it actually understands what it's seeing.
Yeah.
Giving your documents meaning and understanding, right? That is effectively what this will do, not just recognizing the actual plain text on it. And I think when people start thinking about the application of having a document that has meaning, that's digitized, I think that will be quite powerful.
Intelligent document analytics.
There
I
we go.
suppose.
There
Yeah.
we go. Pierre, I'd like to thank you very much once again for joining us on our live stream. It's always fascinating talking with you and learning about the different ways in which Reframe is applying AI, and trying to get that within the South African market and localizing this, and not just using the generic things that are out there, but actually applying it to the challenges that we face here in our local market. So I'm pretty sure that we'll be maybe chatting about facial recognition in the future or one of the other ones. And guys, please leave a comment, leave a like, comment on what you might want to be interested in. There's quite a few use cases that we discussed previously. And thank you, the audience, for joining us. We really, really always appreciate your time if you manage to get here live, and if you take the time to watch this in the recording, we really appreciate that too. Please don't forget to like, please don't forget to share, and please don't forget to leave a comment on this, and we really appreciate this. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.